Hello and welcome to Friends of the Force, a Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Brad.
And I'm your host, Sarah.
And this week on the show, we continue the Andor April celebration here on Friends of the Force. And we have a very special episode today. And we are joined by some of the biggest Andor fans that we know and we love. Stardust Records. Savi, Linz, welcome to the podcast. We're so happy to have you guys.
We're so happy to be here. Thank you for having us.
We were on your podcast last year to talk about The Acolyte. So naturally, come back, talk about some Star Wars TV, talk about Diego Luna, all the good stuff. But for our listeners who aren't familiar with you guys or your podcast, do you want to give a little quick intro about kind of who you are and what you love about Star Wars?
Is that you passing the baton, raising your eyebrows?
Yes.
So, we're Stardust Records. We like to say we're a podcast built on hope because we are a podcast that was started from our love of Andor and Rogue One. Lindsay and I met because of Star Wars, so we would always have these really in-depth, deep conversations about everything that we loved about it and, how it's inspired us and made us creative people and what we can do because of it, essentially. So we thought one day that maybe we should just put a microphone in front of us in our conversations. So a lot of people say that when they listen to our podcast, they feel like they're at brunch with us, which I think is one of the highest compliments. But yeah, I think we're a fairly simple pair. And I love, but do you have anything to add, Lindsay?
I think kind of one of our defining features is that we like to just have fun and laugh about things and keep it we definitely go in depth. We definitely have some really in-depth conversations, but we always kind of bring it back around, and we love to have other guests on, whether it's other podcasters or guests like authors, and we've had video game developer on and everything. So we kind of try to pull from all the different genres and areas of Star Wars to kind of give people a glimpse inside of those areas as well. So we talk to each other, but we also want to collaborate with other people so that we can show other people what those areas of Star Wars are like. So we just had a guest on right before we came on here, and it was really, really awesome too. And so we're kind of in that podcasting mode right now.
Endless podcasting all the time, especially before we all have to travel. I know.
Yes.
Getting everything in. I know. We'll have an in-person collaboration. We'll be meeting, which will be really cool. Yeah. I've gone to the last two celebrations without Lindsay, so I'm really excited to shove her in my suitcase. I'm just kidding. She has a seat on the airplane, but I am really excited to have her there with me. And we're doing a panel, so that'll be cool.
Yes. Yeah. When is your panel for our listeners? Because they should definitely be going to that. And we should be going to that if we can.
Well, I will say the listener is going to hear this after it's happened.
Oh,
so
right.
The question I have for you guys is in explaining your panel, do you guys have plans to record it and upload it at all?
I think so, yes. Last time we were allowed to, so I'm hoping this time it's the same, because we'd love to share it on our pod, especially because we're doing it with our good friend Yasmin, who is a pretty seasoned cosplayer who is just as passionate of the topic that we did, which was celebrating Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order. So it'll be... yeah, hopefully it'll be up on our page by the time this episode drops. So
that's a great incentive, listener, to go onto their socials and see if it's there. And if it's not there, hit the follow button if you don't already, and then patiently wait for it. Because I have no doubts that it's going to be a really excellent panel because the Jedi series is so good and you guys are such passionate fans. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Looking forward to it in the present moment, looking back at it in the moment that our listener will be listening to it.
I feel like all four of us have such similar interests, and you guys cover High Republic books and Jedi Fallen Order again. So we have a lot of commonality there. Also, just shout out, you guys have awesome art, which I don't think I've ever said this, but your podcast art, all your episode cards, they're so colorful, and it makes me happy every time I see one pop up on my timeline. So thank you for that joy.
Yeah.
But, we're here to talk about Andor, and you mentioned that you guys became very close through your love of Andor, your love of Rogue One. So, Andor season 2, as we're discussing today is like the big one. It's the like connective tissue to Rogue One. Like, who would have ever thought we get like a formal prequel to one of our most beloved movies, and let alone one that's probably going to lead right into it, literally, as Tony Gilroy continues to say. Last scene, Rings of Caffeine. But I guess for each of you guys, like, what do you love the most about Rogue One / Andor, kind of like the characters in these stories, and like why is this something that you gravitate towards?
I would just going first here. I would have to say, so the first Star Wars movie, A New Hope, right? A New Hope. It's new, and this is the story of them using using the plans that they got from these rebels who we don't know at that point to liberate the galaxy from the threat of the Death Star. But it's new. We don't know what the cost of it really, we don't know the cost, right? So I feel like Rogue One is the cost of A New Hope. What did that hope cost? And so to me, that's kind of just the summary of Rogue One in my mind and in my heart when I think about it and how impactful it is in like the Star Wars overall narrative. So just on the most base level, that's kind of how I think of it.
I just love that it's a story about the people. I think that, and I feel that way about Andor as well. It's a group of people that we don't know their background, and we get this like very surface level introduction to them, and it doesn't really go as much farther than these few days that we see them, on this mission. And I think it, like, when the casting announcements came out and when all of the previews and stuff, it's just this like regular group of everybody who looks very different and is coming from different parts of the galaxy to make this huge impact. So I think that the story has really stuck with me because of that, because it's like, you don't have to be a hero. You don't have to look like a hero to be a hero, or like you don't have to be like a Jedi or somebody who's like very well known throughout everything. So yeah, I think that's what also is what's really lovable about Andor as well. It's in a similar cadence, I think, but on a much deeper level, I suppose. But yeah.
It's like a portion of the world that we've never quite seen before. We always see like the biggest bads and the best goods fighting against each other. And this is much more granular than that. And I think it makes it a really unique piece in the Star Wars universe, and something that, I think each of us can see pieces of ourselves in. We can see ourselves in Luke or Rey or whomever, our greatest greats. But I think it's also really valuable that we see ourselves, in Bix or in the person on the right walking down the street in the background, because that's somebody who's living a life, or even in Cassian, who's just using tools that he has himself, as opposed to a mystical force that guides him in order to effectuate change. And I think that that's like really valuable, and I'm glad that the Star Wars has it.
Yeah, Linz, you mentioning the cost of hope. I love that phrasing. It's like the first time I've heard that. That's so good. But I'm thinking of A New Hope, where General Donna is like, the Death Star plans brought to us by Princess Leia, and I'm like, you put Jen Erso's name in your mouth. You put Boney Rook's name in your mouth. You put Cassian Andor,
Put some respect.
And, yeah, and I think that's like the brilliance of the movie. It's like how much actually went in to get those plans. Like, people died.
Yeah, there was a whole battle, like a whole very intense, like a big death count that the rebellion probably suffered for a really long time after that as well, because a lot of those people, especially Cassian, like weren't so easily replaceable. I know that we like to say for angst reasons that like, oh, they just probably promoted someone to the next, but it's like, yeah, but that person probably didn't have the same skills as Cassian's like piloting, or Bodhi's piloting, or like Jin's stubbornness. So yeah, it's very intense, I think.
Yeah, and the rebellion didn't want to go to Scarif either, right? It was the courage and the heroism of Cassian and Jin to really like make that charge. And Savi, your point about everybody being a hero. You don't have to be a Jedi. So Tony Gilroy's quote in the special look that we got, revolutionary movements are spontaneously happening all over the galaxy. How those come together is the stuff of our story, right? So it's not just Luke shooting his proton torpedo without his targeting computer. It is Marva Andor's speech on Ferrix. It is, the revolutionary movements that we'll see in season 2, whether it's the Ghorman, the Ghorman scene or any other things that are happening. Bix seems to be pretty involved in the equation from the trailer, right? So that's pretty cool. But I just feel like this season is like, how do we actually get to like a formal rebellion? And I think we take for granted in the original trilogy, like how long it took them to get there, like how many baby steps they had to take all those years leading up to that battle to like establish a base and get the right people in the room and get like a consensus to like, what are we fighting for and who are we fighting against and how should we fight, right? There's disagreements between like Saw and Mon and Bale and all sorts of people,
Yeah, well, Tony, I don't know if it was in a recent interview or in an older one. There's so much that they kind of just get like lost in my head, but he kind of described like Luthen and Clea's plan or I don't know how to describe it, but they basically called the rebellion like Apple starting in the garage. And I thought that was a really, really interesting way to put it because Apple did start in a garage and then look at it today. But like the people who did start it aren't alive to see like how far it's come. So
no, and he also said in the live stream that Luthen is like an accelerationist.
yeah,
And I've said this before, and I'll continue to say it as I keep talking about Andor season 2. Probably every time the listeners are going to be so done with me, but like I thought that was such a compelling way to categorize him because I don't think I had the language for that when I watched season 1 initially. You think about like all these rebels and all these different the texture of rebellion and the way that different people are approaching it from the different lanes, and it's really interesting to see someone who's willing to make it worse so it can get better, kind of at the center of that. Yeah, I don't know what the question is. I'm just running on vibes at this point.
yeah.
I'm sorry, Brad.
So looking forward to season 2, we have a pretty interesting format of how these episodes are being released. So we're getting 3 episodes covering 1 year, all the 4 years leading up to Rogue One. Every week we're getting a little mini Star Wars movie. Fantastic. Let's start there. Like it's a much different seasonal model than season 1. So like, I know there's like mixed feelings about it in general. It's like, oh, I want it to be spread out as long as possible because I don't want it to end so soon. But at the same time, there's some intrigue in getting the whole picture all at once. So would love to hear your guys' thoughts on kind of how you're feeling and maybe what you're nervous about and what you're excited about, kind of getting it all at once every single week.
I had felt so Arcane had a really similar release schedule where it was dropping in acts. So it was like act 1, act 2, act 3, so over 3 weeks. And I was a little bit nervous about that as well because it's a very quick schedule to wrap up an entire story, especially because their season 2 was their last one. But I feel like it almost made the conversation around it a little bit louder and a little bit like more, I don't know, people were more inclined to tune in because they had 3 episodes already out and there was like an end to the act and then they could catch up before the next one. So I feel like one of the main conversations around the first season was that Andor's first season's pacing was not slow, but it didn't vibe with a lot of people, I think. People have jobs and they come home from work and they can't watch it immediately, things like that. So I think that releasing like literally a movie a week where people can sit down at 5 p.m., like after dinner, after they get home from work, watch a movie and then have like a whole week to think about this year or few days that they've covered before we move on to the next. I think it could be very strong in terms of storytelling, especially with this type of story and the way that they're doing it with like the year in between. But I am sad that it's not 12 entire weeks of Andor where it's like one episode a week. And it's like, I will miss that. Oh, well, what's going to happen next? Like with the Eye of Aldani, how it was like a very slow, intense rise to, the storm at the end of the act. But I don't know. I think that I'll personally vibe with it, but I don't know what you guys think or what your opinions are.
Well, my first knee-jerk reaction was to be like, no, that's too quick. It'll be over and then it's done. And I had my moment of ugh. But all the points that Savi here is making kind of sunk in, and I am interested to see what the difference will be between seasons in terms of engagement and conversation around it, online, in person, overall, how that will be received, how the conversations will be different, maybe less speculation between episodes. There won't be that anticipation in some of the arcs, perhaps, but I think there's something to be said for being able to, as Savi was referring to, is just like, it's over and we get to talk about the whole arc as a whole right away and do some serious reflection on it, having had the whole thing up front each year, each arc. So I think that there's a lot of positives for that too. And in a unique way, because it's not just one movie and we're done. We get 4 of them. We get 4 weeks of it. So I'm little bummed, like Savi was saying, that it's only 4 weeks, but I am looking forward to seeing what the difference is. And, we're going to love it regardless. So yeah, that's my feelings on it.
I feel like there's no way that the season is bad. And if it is, like something like 10 separate things or 100 things have gone wrong. But like, I don't think we're gearing up for something that any of us are probably going to be disappointed in. So I'm comforted by that, So regardless of how it's coming out, I think we're going to have a good time. I definitely agree with what both of you said. Like the 4 weeks. Oh no, we're not getting, 3 months worth of Andor at the forefront of Star Wars fans' minds. And like, I think that's a bit of a shame, because I think if there's anything that I want Star Wars fans in general to like really be paying attention to, it's Andor. It's something as good and as prestige and as thoughtful and nuanced, and especially in the moment that we're currently living in, which is complex and scary. Like, I want people to be focusing on Andor, and I want us to have thoughtful conversations about Andor. And I think at the same time, Linz, what you were saying, and Savi, also what you were saying, like the idea that the whole story is going to come out for each of these years and in one night, I do think allows for that conversation to be that more thoughtful, because we're not saying, oh, I wonder what's going to happen in Narkina 5, like, are they going to break out of prison? Are they going to stay there? Like, wow, this is a scary place. I wonder what's going to happen. Speculation. And instead we're going to go, well, the implications of that are really interesting. And the way that they structured that was really compelling. And here's what it says about the moment that we live in. And here's what it says about our characters. And I think there's a great value in that. And I'm also so excited at the prospect of sitting down and watching a Star Wars movie. Like, I really am. It's been a minute. So,
Same.
Yeah, like the hype around the length of a movie, right? There's so much to talk about in the span of 2 hours or 2.5 hours or whatever, that I do think it's going to be a little bit challenging for us as people who all kind of cover these things on a recorded format, talk about these things in a way that's recorded, to like make our thoughts concise enough for 4 weeks in a row to put out an episode that's not also 3 hours long, because it's a little tedious for everybody. Despite, the love of the yap. But I'm really tentatively excited. I'm tentatively excited. I think it will be good, but I think it might be a little overwhelming. But I also think that what will come out of it will be good.
I love Tony gave a quote to Gizmodo, and he was like, you just get to leave all the negative space out of it. It's like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So it seemed like he's really excited about the format in general, which is good, right? So that makes me hopeful that like he's bought into it. I don't feel like he's just saying that, because he's a pretty like upfront guy,
straightforward guy.
he's just a straight shooter, But we also have like some pretty big heavy hitters coming. So like director wise for episodes 1 to 6, we have Ariel Kleeman. Episodes 7 to 9, we have Janus Metz, and then episodes 10 to 12, Alonso Ruiz Palacios. And then writer wise, we have Tony Gilroy in the first arc, Bill Wilmot in the second arc, Dan Gilroy in the third arc, and then Tom Bissell to close us out. Let's take some bets, like with just absolutely zero context for anything. Let's just totally base it off of vibes, base it off of like pure speculation from trailers, like make your own season 2 adventure. Which of these arcs is going to be the most, the biggest banger? What's going to make the most noise? Like what's going to be the new Narkina 5 arc?
What's going to hurt us the most?
Yeah.
What's going to give us the most pain and suffering?
Well, that's like probably 10 to 12.
I'm actually not as convinced. I think that like 10 to 12 will be devastating only because we know that like when he walks onto the thing at Catherine, we just know what happens after that. But that's kind of a cliffhanger in itself, like, or a continuation of a story, right? Because there's a reason he's there. I don't know, Bo Wilmot on 4 through 6.
Okay, that was mine. Yeah,
that's gonna ruin my life. That's all I'm
it's
saying.
also Ariel. It's also Ariel Kleiman, who I don't know if you guys have seen Yellow Jackets, but like he directed some of Yellow Jackets, and yeah, that show is really intense.
Great.
Yeah. Also in like really subtle ways as well. Like sometimes like what's happening narratively versus what's happening like in a directorial sense is like very not different, but like puts you almost a little bit at ease or ill at ease because it's so like intense visually and you're like there with them and you're scared and crying and shaking. But yeah, that's mine as well because Bo is writing it as well. And also sorry, Lindsay, now you've caught me on tangent, but then 10 through 12, Tom Bissell will be really interesting because I feel like he came from like the video game writing scene. So I almost feel like Yavin, because I'm assuming that's going to be the Yavin arc. I almost feel like Yavin will be a little bit like interactive in a way. And I'm not saying that to be like punny or anything, but I do think that we're going to get like down to the nitty gritty when it comes to Yavin. Like I hope we see like barracks and like the like war room and where they get ready and like the tarmac and things like that. Like it'll be really interesting to see it to that aspect, I think.
I'm looking into Bissell now and he's a fascinating figure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, for clarification's sake, the 4 through 6, is that what we think the Ghorman arc is? Or Ghorman?
Yes. I
the things that happen to them.
I do think that's where we're going to get the Ghorman Massacre. I think Tony said it's going to be 5 episodes that's going to cover the massacre.
Mm-hmm.
And like, we could be wrong about that, but like, I see Bo Wilmot writing another banger speech, banger monologue could any of the other writers do it? Like literally, absolutely. But I think it would be great if it came from Bo Wilmot's pen. Mon Mothma's speech in the Senate building upon that.
Oh my God, Bo Wilmot Mon speech. We haven't gotten one. We only got the Luthen speech, the Kino Loy speech. Where's the oh my gosh.
Yeah, especially with that one quote that she has in the trailer. I forget if it was either in the Senate or she's like talking to somebody and you can't see who it is, but she says 2 banger quotes that I really hope are written by Bo. But do you know what I'm talking about, Lindsay? You're Mon Mothma Supreme, but
stop! Don't put me on the spot.
Oh, she says
the
monster will come for us all. That's got to be a Bo Wilmot.
Yeah,
right there.
that has to be. Also, I mean, sorry, Sarah. Go ahead.
No, I mean it could not be, and we could just not be giving the proper flowers to Tony or Dan Gilroy or Tom Bissell. But like, I think we're just all big Bo Wilmot stands over here in the Andor fandom for obvious episode 10 related reasons.
Well, I feel like now that I'm thinking about it really hard now, because Bo Willimon wrote the Luthen speech. And he says, like, I burned my life. And then in the trailer, the second one, they kind of revisit that, where he's on the ship with Cassian and he says something like, it will burn very brightly. and he's in that like fancy stuff that I think like leads to the Ghorman Massacre, but I don't know. I feel like Charlie Kelly with like the freaking Pepe Sylvia thing in the back, like with the cigarette in his mouth whenever trying to talk about Andor.
Yes. Yeah, because there's okay, so like I know we're getting a little into speculation, which is super fun, and I'm like getting all excited. I'm trying to like restrain myself from getting too excited, but I'm like, oh,
Brad's like, don't let me talk about on this podcast. And I'm
I know,
no, you're
like,
on the
please,
podcast.
yeah,
You're allowed to say
stop
words.
me.
Get excited.
Both of you have permission to interrupt me at any point, please. Ariel Kleeman, though, like directing 6 episodes, and Tony saying Gorman's gonna be 5. So like I get the impression that like that whole 6-episode arc is like all Ghorman. Everything that we've seen is kind of centering around the Ghorman Massacre, what like for like costuming and like location, and a lot of these other shots of characters feeling certain ways, like Daedra, clawing at her throat. Is it because she's the one who orders it to happen, and she can't? It's like, oh, I became too important at work and it killed like thousands of people. Like what's going on? I feel like the whole season kind of hinges around this moment, and that's probably why it starts us.
I just building on that moment that you just mentioned. I'm not trying to jump anywhere, but just mentioning Daedra. What did Krennic say right before that? He said something about inferring that there was no rebellion, or he says something to her. And I'm just going to throw it out there, you guys. Here's what I think. I think that the whole Ghorman Massacre thing's going down, or has gone down. And then Krennic and Daedra's wrapped up in it, just like you're speculating. Krennic's like, it doesn't exist. It didn't happen. So then like, it's kind of one of those situations where they're trying to sweep it under the rug. Obviously they can't really, but he's like trying to bury it. And she's left with this thing that like this thing that has happened, whether she fully agrees with it or not. Maybe she's involved. And he's like, well, it didn't happen, or it didn't happen the way you think it is, or there is no rebellion. And then has to be like, she doesn't get the accolades for it. Like maybe she doesn't get recognized for it, or it just doesn't have the outcome that she's looking for. I don't know. Probably not anything I just said, but
no, I mean that's interesting. Because also like where is her career after what happened on Ferrix, right? Like what is she? I feel like that can't be too good for her reputation, because that whole situation just got completely blown up, right? So it's like, okay, now's my chance to maybe get this right, and then like boom, it's a massacre, thousands of civilians get killed. Is that viewed as a failure in the eyes of the Empire if it's bad PR for them? Because I mean it is, it's a genocide, right? Like, so
I think that Krennic and Daedra's relationship will be very fascinating to see. I always think about what Denise said about Daedra, where she said she's not a woman in a fascist workplace. She's a fascist in a fascist world, or something like that. I'm probably misquoting her, but she said it on like the press tour or something. And it'll be interesting to see like their antics, I think, like how they're not entirely too different, but maybe that's why they're going to be butting heads so much. If they do, like they could end up working very well together, but I don't think that will be the plan. But Lynn's, like you said, that'll almost exactly mirror Jeddah, because Jeddah was swept under the rug, and Krennic was kind of seeing that as an achievement. So it'll almost be like he'll be getting a taste of his own medicine in that aspect in the future. Like what he did to Daedra will be coming back to him.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Is he gonna pull a Tarkin on Daedra, is what you're saying? Like this is
so
actually my achievement.
Well, let's build off of both of those things. Because if it's as you're thinking about it, it would make sense that because Krennic is a deeply insecure man. Okay, so Krennic is getting bullied and pushed around, and his project is getting like smacked around, and Thrawn is trying to get TIE fighters built, and Tarkin's playing them both and everything. And so I can see Krennic being someone who's trying to like leverage his power against someone who's subordinate to him to make himself feel better and like look good in his own like perception of himself. So I can see him kind of bullying her. Maybe he doesn't bully her. Maybe they're like, maybe he takes her under his wing. Like maybe he's thinking of her as like a prodigy of his. Like who knows? Maybe it's a different dynamic. I don't know. But I could see that being something too.
It's really interesting at the thought of like it being swept under the rug, especially considering the other side of this, which is Mon Mothma, her speech in the Senate, and how we know that this is a turning point for her. Like this is happening in the galaxy, and we know this as fans of the Star War. But what is the information that is getting to the citizens in the Star War? You know, how is that information being disseminated? Is this a inciting moment, not just for Mon to step away from the Senate and say things have gone too far, or for Cassian or whoever else is there or adjacent to it, or already kind of a rebel sort of figure that's now being further radicalized or further pushed into their point. But like, does this have ripple effects for the everyday person, or does it simply not? And I think that that's something that I haven't quite considered. I've been thinking about the Ghorman Massacre as a viewer of the Star War, as opposed to a citizen of the galaxy far, far away, which is a completely different environment.
I here's what I want to say on that, and it kind of connects and clicks with what Mon Mothma says in the trailer, where she's appearing before the Senate and she says the monster will come for us all. Seeing the shots of, what's the name of the planet, or is it just the name of the people that we know? The Ghormans.
Gore, I think.
Yeah. Well,
Gore?
the
Okay.
language is Gore. That's what the trailer said, like the description of that. But I don't know if we 100% know. So go with your heart.
So we see what I'm assuming are overhead shots of this city, right, where some of these scenes are taking place, and these people seem pretty, I don't know where it is close to the core of the galaxy, but they seem like they've got some wealth. They seem well off. They seem like a well off planet. I don't know if they are or not, but just going with my thought here, this isn't Tatooine. This isn't a backwater planet, is what it doesn't seem like it is. This is a planet that, and I don't know what their industry is like, but basically the Empire moving on a planet like that and massacring people that are of whatever status that they are, then you get Mon Mothma saying they'll come for us all. Like, if it could happen to them, it can happen to you. Trying to like appeal to some of the senators that probably don't give a heck about some of the outer rim worlds, you know. That's what I kind of feel like it's going to be. It's going to be something that the Empire can't contain anymore. They've committed atrocities across the galaxy. They've wiped out people. They've ruined worlds. But this will be something that most can't look away from. Like they can't just be like putting it out of their minds. Maybe the Ghorman people are a little bit more front facing in the galaxy than another world, right? So I think that they could try to sweep it under the rug, but maybe it's just too much. Can't do it this time. And so that's why Mon Mothma is like, this is unfortunate. Like, this is a terrible thing, but this is the moment where she can really speak to the galaxy and the Senate and be like, look how far it's gone, right? So that's kind of how I'm perceiving it. I don't know.
I think that's a great point, and I'm going to be really, really interested to see how that plays out. I think once we put the pieces together that this was going to be the Ghorman Massacre and that this was the turning point, I went back and I like watched her speech, or as we see it as the hologram in that one Rebels episode, and I went, ooh, there's something here. And then she mentions it. She mentions the Ghorman people in season 1. So this is an issue that she already cares about. They cut off their trade lanes. So I'm going to be so interested to see it play out. And I want to clarify for the listener that will be listening to this in 3 weeks, that we are rolling on trailers 1 and 2 the live stream that Tony Gilroy did, or that Star Wars did with Tony Gilroy and a handful of actors, and the special look. And I think those are the 4 things that we have kind of gotten so far. So there's probably going to be a little bit more that's come out in the coming weeks with TV spots or whatever else. So if any of these things are just like dead wrong and we already know it at this point, give us a little bit of grace. We're operating in the past.
Wow. They haven't even seen the Ghorman Massacre commercial about like the 4 or 5 episode arc that explains everything in 30 seconds.
Sorry, guys. I was so wrong.
Man, they revealed that one character that we thought was a totally different character in the one scene of trailer spot number 7. How dare they? Okay, like give us a little room here, okay? We're out here in the past. We only know what we know.
If I may, in traditional nerd fashion, push up my glasses for a moment and go, actually, if I may, chapter 13 of The Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire by Dr. Chris Kemshaw. I know. I bought the ebook so I can pull up Ghorman really quickly. Chapter 13, Atrocities and Genocides. So it says here, quote, one of the most shocking episodes of Imperial brutality played out on Ghorman and 2 BBY with the deaths of Ghorman, with the deaths of hundreds, if not 2
BBY. Hold on,
2 BBY. So that puts us in episodes 4 to 6. Or right? Wait, 4 to 6. Yeah, right around that time, 4 to 6.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Because if we're going, well, what are we doing?
We're jumping. It's 3 days, 1 year, 3 days, 1 year, 3 days. Rogue One. I think I said that right.
4 to 6 is going to be 3 BBY leading into 2 BBY, but like those episodes could take place over the full 3 BBY, closer to 2, right?
Oh, I don't have the brain power to figure that out right now. I'm just going to believe you. I'm going to I hope you guys know I'm going to draw this out later and be like 3 episodes. Okay.
It says here, this attempt to crush dissent may have been a serious miscalculation by the Imperial officials who orchestrated it. Rather than terrify the wider population into accepting Imperial rule, it showed many with rebel leanings that even if peaceful protests would be greeted with death, then there could be no political solution or compromise. If people were going to die regardless of how they resisted, then it may as well have become an armed resistance. End quote.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm already wrong. Brad's pulling out the receipts. Thank you.
I know, that's why I was like, actually, but you guys were. I mean, the speculation is great.
Actually, this,
but it's curious, like to the point of can it get swept under the rug? Like, does it initially? If it happens in maybe 4 to 6, maybe 7 to 8 or 6 to 8, whatever. Maybe those episodes, it's kind of like bringing it back to the light, right? Like kind of highlighting the massacre, showing it on the grand stage in the Senate, Mom making her big speech. So I just like wonder how long that's going to take place over, right? Like, is it going to take time for that truth and for that justice to kind of be brought out in a more public forum, right? Like, is Mon really going, a week later after it happens, like, I'm ready to stand up to Palpatine? Or is it more of a long-term game where she's really got to make sure the rebellion pieces are lined up before she puts herself out there? She's got to get that Phoenix Rebels crew ready to, swoop her up and rescue her at some point. So are they ready to do that? Where's Ezra? Where is he?
Ezra in Andor? Hera in Andor?
Imagine.
Who knows?
Episode 7 ends with her getting swooped up in the ghost and just flies off. We've already seen it in Rogue One, so like, will we see it again in the Yavin base? Probably. It's parked there permanently.
And now they actually have like a real working chopper, and we saw Chopper in Rogue One, so who knows?
I think Chopper is a almost guaranteed cameo because you can just have him in the background going like burp, 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 burp.
Yeah.
easy money. That was $1 billion.
Pretty good impression.
Thanks. I worked on it all day for this episode.
Dave Filoni is shaking in his boot. He's just taking his job. Yeah.
I mean, they're taking a while to make these movies, so I might have to fill in, for a little bit. It's gonna take a bit. What other aspects of the Ghorman Massacre? Because this is like I feel like this is the climax of the season in a lot of ways. So like we can spend some extra time on it if we want, but like any other thoughts or maybe clues from the trailer we should key in on?
Well, it looks like Cyril's there.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's true.
Good call. Let's talk about that for a hot minute.
I just thought I'd bring it out there.
Our favorite loser boy.
Yeah.
He's the absolute worst, the most pathetic man. What's he up to? What's he up to there? Really curious.
Probably nothing good. Well, it could be something good. I mean, there's that shot of him with all of the K2 series or the KX series, and it's a very similar outfit, if not the same outfit than the one that he's wearing, where he kind of like turns around and looks at the ships flying above. And it makes me wonder if that's the same, and if that's where we get K2, or how that's all going to work. I'm a big Cyril is defecting truther. I really hope that okay, yeah. This is a safe place, but I'm like really, really hoping that by then he'll have like either thought about it or kind of had that moment with Cassian, or a moment with Cassian where he's kind of made that decision, or something that's pushed him over to the other side. But I don't know.
I mean, witnessing the massacre could be the thing.
That's true.
If we're gonna have Cyril defect, that could be the catalyst.
We all know that like his whole MO in the first few episodes of season 1 is these unjust deaths that don't get solved, that they're willing to sweep under the rug. Do I think Cyril's gonna like turn around and be a good guy? No, I don't think that's what Cyril Redemption looks like. But I think that he is going to come to the point. Brad and I had a conversation about the Les Miserables of it all, and the particularity of like Javert and Javert's whole kind of end. Not to spoil a book hundreds of years old, but Javert ultimately, his life is spared by Jean Valjean, and then that causes him such a moral quandary of that, like, wow, this person who I thought was this hardened criminal and I locked away because of that's the law, just showed me this incredible act of mercy, and that if he like turned him in or whatever, that again that would be an immoral thing to do, and so he can't reconcile the legality versus the morality of his position and his actions, and he ultimately takes his own life. And in the musical sings a lovely song, Stars. It's great. Don't watch the movie version, listen to the musical version. No shade to whoever, I forget his name, who played him.
Are you saying Kyle Slover's busting out the vocal cords in the Ghorman Massacre scene?
God, I hope so.
In that scene in particular, maybe not. But will we get singing in season 2 of Andor? I think anything could happen. We did get the marching band in season 1, and that's why I particularly think that singing could occur. There's also, I don't want to prematurely transition this topic, but we'll talk about it. There's a wedding happening. So, like, do they hire the live band for the wedding? You know what I'm saying? Like, we could get some live music here.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, no, I love the Les Mis thought with him totally being like a Javert like character, because I think maybe Linz, I think your theory that Ghorman is what changes his mind is like kind of spot on, and we have to like have that closure with Cassian at the same time, right? Like, so he's got to turn cynical towards the Empire for Cyril Redemption to happen, and I say that Cyril Redemption very loosely. But he's also got to have that moment with Cassian and being like, you're actually the good guy who I didn't think you were, right? You held a gun to my head in season 1. You were this elusive thief and murderer who I tried so hard to capture and was obsessed over for so many episodes. And no matter how hard I try, you escape my grasp. And so maybe it's a moment of Cassian is actually the one who saves him from getting killed at the Ghorman Massacre, right? Like, he spares his life, recognizing that this could be somebody I could work with if I show him mercy or show him empathy in some way.
And
nice.
We could have a mirroring moment. I think we talked about this, Savi and I talked about this with someone or just with each other, but we could have a mirroring moment where Cassian is escaping the massacre or whatever, and Cyril has tracked him and finds him and holds a gun to him and then lets Cassian go.
Ooh.
Oh, like a full circle moment. Yeah, we were talking.
Yeah.
I also feel
because Cassian could have killed Cyril on Ferrix, but
Right.
he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Cyril could kill Cassian, but he doesn't.
I also feel like Cyril is very interesting because I don't know if what I'm going to say is about to make sense at first, but I feel like his intentions are very like I feel like his head is in the right place because he wants to help, like he wants to solve, like he wants to improve essentially, but he's just doing it in the wrong place. And I think that being in the Empire, like not getting the recognition that he's kind of actively seeking out, or like the work that he's trying to put in, would benefit the rebellion more than it would benefit the Empire. I think that a lot of the stuff that he does, even down to the fact that he was like inputting a bunch of different reports while he was working in the office to Dedra, that's like a very rebel thing to do, I think. And from the beginning, I've always felt like him and Cassian were meant to be mirrors of each other in a way. Maybe not so blatant, maybe more subtle, but I think it would be really interesting to see him transition to the rebellion, because part of me thinks that he's supposed to be Andor's Callus in a way. I would love to get a Callus cameo, but I think that this might be that in Cyril.
Yeah, where are our Fulcrum cameos?
Right there with you.
I don't know.
We're missing a piece of the story here, because there's a point where all of these key players, right, become Fulcrum agents and are working with my guy Bail Organa. If I'm remembering that all correctly. Where are those folks? How do we get there? Are we getting it in the show? Please. Anyway.
I would think that if we're gonna get it, it'll be a mention, like a nod to it. If or not at all. That's my like expectations being tempered down to like the lowest setting on the burner, right? But who knows? I'm willing to be pleasantly surprised.
See, that's
to actually see somebody.
That's what I'm trying to like keep it at. I keep saying that like Bail will not show up, and Brad's like, Bail's showing up, and I'm like, don't say that to me. I have to keep the expectations low so I can be pleasantly surprised. And so if it doesn't happen, I'm not personally emotionally crushed, because life is difficult already.
It would I feel like Tony is not afraid to do a good cameo where it makes sense. And I feel like cameo is a very oddly defined word, especially in today's day and age and on Twitter and Blue Sky or wherever. But I feel like if it makes sense, even with Best, like how he handled all of that stuff that was in like the Rebel Files and in Rogue One novelization, like he handled that so well and so naturally that I think that if he were to put a character like Bail in it, that he wouldn't treat it like it was just to get the audience like to cheer and applaud him. Like I think if it actually is going to make the story richer, then he would do it. Like I don't think he would shy away from it.
Not to shade our origin story here in Rogue One, but I assume if it would happen, it wouldn't be like he's walking into the frame and he looks up. You know that one shot of Bail where it's like, and here he is. I don't expect it to be like that if that's the case. I agree with you that Tony Gilroy is like a pretty intentional sort of guy, and he's not someone to be there and be like, gotcha, here's another one. Like he's bringing Krennic for a reason, you know.
Mm-hmm. Hey, well, I think probably the most important, I wouldn't even call it cameo, it's just element of the season, and Lindsay, you mentioned it, is K2. The shot of Cyril, a room full of K2 droids. We got to get the introduction of K2. We know Alan Tudyk is back, which is just wild. I love that they didn't dangle that carrot. Well, they kind of dangled the carrot a little bit in season 1, and like that was some of the best Star Wars bait I've ever seen in my life. So good. I take back what I said, because they definitely dangled that carrot. And it was the worst, because they were like, and here's a droid walking up and he's super menacing, and we only know one droid of this kind. So I actually take back what I said about him doing a Bail look up moment, because it was kind of like that, but except it wasn't K2. I just speak nonsense. But that was a little baity. And then we immediately learned that it wasn't that droid. But we definitely, in the second trailer, get what is very clearly K2, because he knocks an Imperial off that bridge. So, yeah, what's the Cyril K2 connection? Interesting, if there is one. And that's where I'm like, so let's maybe start with like, do we think K2 is one of the droids at the Ghorman Massacre? Is that where K2 originates from? Does Cassian work with Cyril to maybe hack one of them to like have an escape plan somehow, and like that's how they get out of there, and then it ends up being, you know, BFFs for life?
Yeah.
Or do we think like this could just be another bait where it's like that's not the K2 droid yet? But I also feel like they're not going to bait us a second time when we know he is in the season, especially because we know the comic is getting retconned too, so that's kind of out the window.
I think that's a tough. I don't. I think it's a tough thing, at least for me, to like speculate on or theorize for, because like Cassian obviously does a lot of undercover work, and like we know that he is excellent at, you know, spy work essentially even before he's like in the intelligence agency. And I think it would be really fascinating to see like if maybe K2 isn't even reprogrammed, like he's just maybe convinced this droid, but I don't know how any of that works. But I don't know. Because KX series like aren't strangers to massacres. Like we learned that they were on, oh my god, it's been a really long time, but in The Mandalorian, they were in the Bo-Katan.
Oh, the Night of 1,000 Tears.
Yeah, I think
right?
so. I remember like seeing a bunch
the
of
silhouettes walking around with their lights, their eyes shooting at the ground to look for survivors.
Yeah. So I do wonder if it's a similar situation, but I don't know. It would be cool to see if they like pulled from the comic, like it's one of those last minute finite decisions that Cassian makes in like the spur of the moment where he's like, okay, well, this is my only way out, and I think that it's a good idea, like how he does with leaving Jeddah and not calculating anything. But I don't know, it'd be cool to see if that's how they became friends. Or I think I'm more excited not just to see how they meet, but also like how the relationship builds, if anything.
Right. And do we get some of that with those time jumps? Like, do we get enough of it? You know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I would love that too. Like, I think you're right. That's the most interesting part of just like, how do they learn each other's quirks, and how do they learn each other's things? That they're like kind of a married couple in a way, right? Like you want to see those beginning stages. What does the honeymoon stage look like? And when do they start to get ornery with each other?
I know. And I know this is like a little bit more morbid, but there's so many intimate scenes that are like referenced in the novelization. Like when K2 was kind of talking Cassian down or away from the ledge, like it would be interesting to see like how it gets to that point, because like with Cassian, like he's always treated B2 as an equal or like a friend rather than just like a droid, and more of like a companion and someone really close to him. So he's not a stranger to a relationship with a droid. So I don't know if it's something that's like he kind of insinuates first and then like K2 kind of reciprocates in a way, but it'll be nice to know that, to see K2 kind of get like soft inside for this grumpy guy.
So as well as the relationship between Cassian and K2, we also know that K2 will probably have somewhat of a relationship or a working relationship with Melshi, or Scott Melshi. So is along with his his relationship with Cassian. I mean, the first time we see K2 in Rogue One, he's working with Melshi. So, and I think we have a shot in the trailer or one of the special look or whatever with Melshi is in the U-Wing with them. So, just, I don't know. I'm just excited to see him again. No matter how it turns out, no matter what form or what's going on with him, I'm just really excited to see him again. So, yeah.
You mentioned the U-Wing, by the way. My beloved U-Wing. I'm just, the year is 2016. Well, literally the year is 2016 again, but like the good part of 2016. And this will be the good part of 2025 is just seeing U-Wings and my little boy K2. Like, you know, we just got to take the ones where we can find them nowadays.
Well, I know that there's a theory that K2 is Luthen's ship, like the personality in Luthen's ship that like
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
messing
Oh my
me up
God.
right now. You're messing me up. Oh, because they have the little look. They look at each other in season 1 where he's like, don't even think about it.
Yeah. So
Yes.
a lot of people are like, okay, well, I say a lot of people, but I've only read this like once or twice. But like some
At
people,
least 2 people.
yeah, exactly. So many people are saying this, but yeah, they were like, what if it's Luthen's ship? Like after Luthen dies or Luthen like loses the ship, he at least like saves the data chip and like puts it in a droid or something.
I'm on board. You just changed my whole world. I'm a truther. I drink the Kool-Aid.
I know.
Because the ship talks to Cassian. Like that scene in season 1, I always kind of felt like, why did they put that there? Like, why is the ship talking to him? Why are we showing that the ship can talk to him?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they didn't have to do that. So why did they do that? I don't know.
And we've seen it done with
Also, he doesn't
L3,
talk
by the way,
again.
right? Like,
Does the ship?
With
Yeah.
L3,
so there's
yeah.
And does the ship-
precedent. It'd be like reverse L3, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, does the ship talk to Luthen at all? Like, that's is that the only time it speaks in the show?
No.
When does it speak?
It doesn't like speak like a conversation, but when Luthen is basically like the space version of pulled over by the Empire.
Okay.
Yeah, when
But
he's at
still.
when he's at the traffic stop and he gets the Alderaanian codes. But that, you know what that's making me think of? Like that he's able to generate those numbers. He's able to do some database looking up. May I kindly ruin your evening by reminding you about the death of K2 in the Rogue One novelization written by Alexander Freed, in which he does a number of calculations to see whether Cassian and Jin will make it out. And in the last second, he has won.
We have to take your microphone away now.
Yeah, no, I think I'm
All
going to call
she's hitting the mute button.
calling United Airlines, canceling your plane ride to Japan. You're done.
Right. Not
Revoked.
allowed anymore.
Canceling your hotel. Yep.
Oh man.
How dare you?
Yeah. I mean, between those two things, numbers and sass, I see it as possible.
Yeah.
Plausible.
Yeah. I know some people were also, I don't think that this is true at all. And I think it's actually kind of silly, but I don't want to like be mean to people and their theories. Though sometimes it's okay to be. But actually,
Your Snoke theory sucks.
somebody said that K2 was B2. And I was like, no, they're like two complete opposite droids. And I don't want that to be true because I want them to interact desperately. I actually want all of Cassian's like Phyrexian family to meet K2 just so I can see the dynamic.
I think that was like a fun K2 pilled theory in like early season 1, but like we're in the end game now. Like we're growing beyond that kind of mindset, you know, like we got to have the two buddies talk. That's distinct personalities, etc.
B2 is a little too much like anxious communicator to, I think, have the level of the confidence of the sass that K2 is bringing to the conversation. Although it, like, I can entertain that theory and say like, okay, well maybe they're able to save part of his wiring or whatever, but like, probably not. Could nothing's impossible yet. It'll be all impossible soon once we know what happens, but nothing's impossible right now.
Guys, B2 is just gonna go with Brasso and they're gonna go live on a nice beach planet and they're going to sit by the ocean for the rest of their lives and they're gonna be so happy together, right?
Now this is a speculation I welcome.
Yeah, and also let's not forget Bix. Bix will be joining them.
Bix will be there too.
Everybody at that table
and Will be
let's
there.
Save them all. Let's save them all.
We'll just ship them off ourselves.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're here to save you. We're here to just like let you have a good one. Like I actually have saved up for your retirement and it's right now. We all the 401ks, you know.
Heck, we'll even go pick up Pelga, whatever his name is. Pelga from Ferrix. Let's get the time grappler. Everybody from Ferrix relocate. The place from Bad Batch. That's where they're going. What's that called? Pabu.
Pabu. Yeah.
Let's just Pabu is just the like metaphorical place where all of our favorite characters go. They never die. They live there forever and they die happily ever after. That's it.
I think
unless you're one of those people who was like, Pabu is Scarif.
Oh,
because of
Well, now
Lindsay
my
is
day is ruined
hating me.
again.
Yeah, Lindsay's hating me because
No, not-
because the entire time the
No.
Bad Batch was coming out, I was like, I bet you Pabu is on Scarif, but no, it's not on Scarif. It's its own planet, and that's where Bix and Brasso and B2 are going.
That's for all the people we need to be alive,
All
though.
of Ferrix is relocating to Pabu, and nothing bad will ever happen to them ever. But on a more serious note, like about like character speculations and like what happens, because we know what happens to K2 and Cassian, but like I feel like when Cassian says like you're not the only one who lost everything, that doesn't have to translate to death. I think like he lost his sister, he lost his biological parents, his mom, his dad, he lost Ferric, so I feel like that in itself is already everything. And I think that like this, and I'm sorry if this is really off topic from like our little schedule thing, but it would be, feel like it would be a disservice to these characters to kill them off, or to like show that like you can't always survive war, or like you can't always come out of this unscathed. Like to see characters like them like come out of this, it would be like a really uplifting, I think, storyline to something how we know already ends, if that makes sense. I don't know where that came from, but
Yeah.
Because Bix has already gone through the ringer. Like she needs an upswing. She's already hit like such a low in the first season. I feel like it, specifically talking about Bix, I feel like it would be really sad if we lost her after everything that she's gone through. I don't know. Say that for so many of them that have passed, but
I know.
Yeah, Bix would be like the easiest one to point to and say she dies for all the reasons you're naming, and it's like, oh, Jin reminds Cassian of Bix, and that's why in the final moments, like he's thinking of her, you know, in the elevator, maybe.
we're rebuking that.
Or so whatever, you know,
We're
he's just thinking of all
rebuking
he's thinking of all the ladies.
Nope.
All the ladies he's ever been with.
He's a cute guy. He's like, just one last kiss for the road, you know, in the elevator.
Exactly.
I like to think it was a very long elevator ride, and a little bit more than kissing happened, but you know, that's what fan fiction's for.
We
But-
all know that it was a little bit more than kissing.
But I love
nobody
your...
looked at my saved tags on
Yeah, we don't-
My
We don't talk
bookmarks
about
are
that.
between myself and God.
But there's this quote from Collider with our friend Maggie Levitt from Tony about this, and let's get into like maybe a little bit of body count territory. So he says over 5 years of these.
Why is this the direction we're going? But okay.
Over 5 years of these circumstances, it's not about whether you live or die. It's the damage. It's the sacrifice you've made or the sacrifice you haven't made. Which to me, I think that kind of gets into what you're saying, Savi, which is like, it's not just like dying is not necessarily the worst outcome.
No, I'm just pondering the death or lack of death of everybody and how it's a terrible option either way. Like,
I know. Well, I guess what gives me a little bit of faith about characters like Bix and Brasso is that everybody thinks that they're going to die, or mostly everybody, because I feel like that's been like a pretty heavy topic whenever either character is mentioned, at least by what I've seen. But Tony Gilroy said that whatever, this is what I think I'm quoting correctly, was that whatever people think he's going to do, he's not going to do. So I think it's like one of those moments where a lot of people think that these characters are going to die. And I think that that would be the worst thing to happen to them. But then he says stuff like Mon Mothma has the most emotionally wrecking story in this season. So it's like, well, we know where Mon ends up. So it's like, what's, I don't know, like where are the other characters going then if Mon's is the worst, I guess. But I don't know. It'll be really fascinating to see. I hope.
Yeah, I feel like this. No, I feel like death is definitely the worst outcome, but I feel like the show is bold enough to break apart the complexities of just surviving and what that means, right? Like, let's just not throw Ben Solo in the pit and have him die and never live to tell another tale. Like,
ouch.
what if Ben had lived? What's his emotional turmoil? You know, like I want to see the emotional turmoil of these characters and like what they live with after what they go through. Like that to me is the most interesting aspect. And there's just so many good characters that like you don't want to throw them away.
Yeah.
Have you guys read the Alphabet Squadron trilogy?
No, it's
Okay.
the next one on my list.
It is on our
All
list,
right.
yeah.
All right. Let's circle back once you finish The End of Victory's Price. We can have just a little Andor related conversation. I don't want to spoil a thing. But I will say for people who have read that book, the final chapter of it is what I guess is what I hope for the characters, because it's really, they're so good. They're so good. My greatest recommendation. Okay. But there's a lot of thoughtfulness in the way that he closes out the stories of those various characters, and a lot of complexity in that story, as I think we're getting the same level of complexity in Andor, which we can also see then reflected like back into the Reign of the Empire book that he just came out with, The Mask of Fear. And so I hope that Tony is like bringing that same complexity regardless of where these characters end up, because I have no doubt that at least somebody we know is going to unfortunately kick the bucket. Like, whether it be Cyril or Dedra are bad guys or are good guys. I don't think everybody's going to make it. But regardless of how their stories kind of conclude, I just hope that it's like thoughtfully and complexly built in a way that we feel an emotional satisfaction, regardless of whether it's a happy or sad ending for them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's as much as I can say without spoiling that book, because I really don't want to spoil that book, because it did have me crying on the floor in the fetal position at like 2 a.m.
That's how you go to bed.
All right. I can't wait to get locked in.
If you had to throw money down in Vegas, all your savings, for me, it's not more than $20. Who are you? Shit's been rough. Eggs are like $50 right now. Who are you throwing all your money on to kick the bucket this season? Because I will go first and say it's got to be Luthen. It's got to be Luthen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Like that's the
100%.
most obvious.
Yeah.
He's just a goner.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he's not even in the movie that came out in the 70s. What are we going to do? He's got to die.
It's got to be Luthen. Luthen, I think, is kicking the bucket. I'm trying to think. I don't want to put the vibes out in the universe by saying anybody else's name, and I'm just kind of hesitant to anyway, because there's only like one person, Luthen, that I feel is like certainly going to die. So just being completely honest, like that's the only character I feel certain about. But yeah.
I also feel pretty certain about Luthen, and I think Dedra. I think, but I don't.
Ooh, that's a good one though. I would throw a little bit of money there.
Yeah, I wouldn't put my whole savings account, but maybe like a $5 bill I found in my pocket. But like,
yeah,
Luthen,
why not?
Luthen, I think, yes, I do. And then I think that maybe Dedra, but like hard maybe. I know I keep saying maybe, but I don't want to come back to this and be like, darn it, I was wrong. But
I think the thing with Dedra is the same thing that we see with Krennic, is right. Like, we're seeing these characters in the Empire who are ambitious and who seek power and who want to be at the right hand of Vader and the Emperor. And not all of them make it. And we know this because we've seen the original trilogy. So watching Tarkin kind of sabotage Krennic's career, and also knowing that Dedra faces misogyny in the workplace, and that it is not necessarily a place that is kind to her as an employee. I think that, what Padagaz says, watch your back, after he compliments her when they walk out of the meeting room. So I think she's got targets on her, by people who are also ambitious. And I think that is something she should definitely be worried about. Whether or not it means her life as opposed to just her career, I think we'll find out. But yeah, I don't think, Savvy, your thought about Dedra maybe being one to go is off base at all. I will also add Cyril to the mix because Star Wars just does love like a redemption via death. Like, and I also just don't entirely see an outcome in where he makes it through. I think that he sees a little bit of clarity, or sees a little bit of quandary in his morality, but I don't see him having the opportunity to work through that to its end, and kind of come out a different person. I think he'll change, and then he'll, like, something will happen to him, or he will make a choice that puts himself in danger.
Yeah, Cyril's a good call. I could see that. And going back to like the Javert of it all, like, you know, he kind of realizes too late into his own spiral, and he's like, I'll just do one last good thing, maybe. And that's kind of his story. And then he goes to Star Wars heaven and eats blue puffs the rest of his days. Unlimited supply.
Cereal.
Yeah.
With Ben Solo gets to heaven and Cyril Karn is there welcoming him
with a box of cereal.
Hey,
they're blue.
They're blue.
You too?
These are my favorite.
I love that.
One thing, like I mentioned a bit earlier, and I kind of want to make sure we talk about it because we've been yapping for a while, but it's kind of the other big piece of this. And I think, Savvy, you were the one who mentioned that Mon is the one who gets like the most devastating arc in this season. Right away, when we saw that first trailer, I was like, oh, that is the wedding of Leda. That is, unfortunate. Here we are, unfortunate times. And I think that this wedding of Leda to Davos Skolden's son, and we know like Davos Skolden is like the absolute worst. Like, ugh, what a piece of trash. We hate him. Perrin looks like just a sparkly shiny gem next to Davo. And knowing that her daughter is going to kind of face the same potentially loveless marriage, the conservative values that maybe trap Leda a bit, especially when she's getting married so young. She's 13, at least at the time of season 1, so she's going to be a little bit older in season 2, but she's a baby, she's a child. And so while she's clearly kind of choosing her path and she has agency and kind of wanting to go through with this, you know, what knowledge does she have to what life has she lived to say that this is how she wants to spend the rest of it at age, 13 with this person. And so while those scenes look rather beautiful in terms of the costuming and the atmosphere, I really, really expect these to be absolutely gut-wrenching. And I just want to know, like, what thoughts you have about Leda and this wedding and what it means for both Leda and for Mon and her family.
I feel like, so there's a shot in the trailer where Mon is like center of the shot. She's turned around. She has like turned around to face, I guess, the camera. And she just has this look on her face while this frivolity is just happening in the background, this celebration. And she just has this look on her face. I don't know. In the episode, maybe she's seeing someone that she doesn't want to see, or she's, having a moment. But to me, it just made me think of like, she's probably in this moment that she's trying to be happy and she's having to look happy, whether she is or not. Like, she has to be participating in the celebration. She has to look like she's celebrating, even if she's dying inside. And I can think of, but it is just so unimaginably cruel to think about a mother realizing her hand in it, having had to make that choice that seems impossible, and going through with it, and having to be strong for her daughter and be strong. Like, I would think that that's one of the hardest moments of Mon Mothma's life, is that party, is having to put on a face. I mean, she has to put on a mask all the time, but having to put on a mask when it's her daughter, right? And I don't know. I'm really excited in a sense, not excited for the circumstance that they're in, but interested maybe is a better word, to see how that plays out and how deeply we feel for Mon, how much of Mon's emotions are shown in that episode. I'm sure we're gonna get to the nitty gritty with it, but yeah, I'm devastated for her.
I was just recently rewatching the first season, and there's a interaction between Vel and Mon where they're talking about they're watching Lita in the dining room or like the dining area, like go through all of the, I guess, like I don't know what to call it. I don't want to call it like a cult thing or like a religious thing, but like they were doing like I guess a sermon in a way. I don't know, like around the table, but and they were talking about how like they did it or like they had the opportunity to do it or something like that. I think I'm misremembering, but like they spoke about it very differently than how like Lita obviously feels about it. So I wonder if Mon is worried that like Lita will eventually like go through all of this and like the customs and the traditions, and like they seem very like exciting and beautiful and lovely, and then like Lita gets to Mon's age and she like realizes the severity of it, or like how almost she was kind of blinded by it in a way, and by then like Mon has already lost her family. And where we see her in Rebels is she doesn't really have anybody, and where we see her in Rogue One, she's a completely different person. Like she's not living on Coruscant or anything like that. And I don't know, I she's a very tragic character to me because we know where she is in Rogue One, and it's not anywhere where she is in Andor season 1. And also the fact that she's using like her family's money, wealth, to like put money into this like this scheme so far. It's just very, she took a lot of risks, and I think that she kind of prepared herself for that, but I don't think that she expected the very personal effect that would have on her, if that makes any sense. Like I don't think that she thought it would go as far as like her losing her daughter, and not in like the death sense, just in like the relationship sense where like they don't talk anymore or anything like that. Or sorry, Linz, there's even a line in Mask of Fear where she says that she might have like she fell out of love with Perrin, but like he's still her salvation, and she doesn't have him by the time we're at Rogue One. So it's like a very, yeah, I don't know, her character is very tragically beautiful.
Yeah, I think that with her relationship with Perrin, it's a very, like, she can reconcile her actions when she just has Perrin to be worried about, or has Perrin in her life. But with a daughter, it's different. It's just different to her, I would assume. I would think. And I think that she could say goodbye to Perrin forever, but and not suffer too badly, because she's spent her life distancing herself from him in certain ways to protect herself or to protect him. So she's been doing it for a very long time. But with Lita, it's different. And I think in the wedding scene or the wedding episode, we might see her fully coming to the realization that she is giving away Lita, and Lita will not be, she has to give up a daughter, like give her up probably maybe forever, and never have that relationship with her. And whether it's in her mind she tries to reconcile it and say that she's protecting her, Lita will have a clean break, she'll be with another family, she'll be living a life that she supposedly wants, whether, and like we brought up earlier, how can she make that choice so young? And Mon might be trying to be like, no, this is good because there's no other way that it could go. Like with what I'm doing, it'd be too dangerous to have her close to me in my life. But it's bad any way you cut it. So, oh, my heart hurts for her.
I think there's also a really devastating consequence for Lita here. And I'm like, she's gonna break from her mom. Don't let us not forget her beloved aunt is also, or her, her cousin. I don't know the relationship there, but like Vel is also a member of the rebellion and somebody who's very dedicated to the cause. So that's two of her family members that are directly involved in this thing that is going to escalate and require more of their time and energy and maybe their sacrifice. And then like the relationship between her parents is going to suffer. And then she's probably like, I don't know exactly how this custom works, but I imagine she's probably going to be closer to Davos Skolden's family in proximity and, location, than Mon on Coruscant. So that's like really probably upsetting too, because maybe it gets her out of the action, but then she's much closer to not only this young boy that she's marrying, maybe a planet she hasn't lived on her whole life, but also to Davos Skolden, who is, once again, the worst, just kind of a nasty, slimy guy. Like, and I think that's an unsafe position for her too, because the person, that Davo is influencing most is his young son, his young, impressionable 13-year-old son or whatever. So I just think that Lita's in unfortunately, a really unsafe and position where everything around her, even if this change is something that she wants or she outwardly wants, will cause so many connections in her life to break.
Yeah. Ugh.
This storyline
sucks. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm excited but not excited at the same time to see Mon's crashing out per se. Speaking of crashing out, Savi, you had a funny tweet the other day. I think this can kind of transition us a little bit here. You said, "Hey guys, I'm kind of crashing out about the Canary siblings right now," with a picture of Cassian and Clea, and I was like, "Girl, same." Because I was literally having the thought, and it was like, "How did you know?" At that moment, I was thinking about it, and I saw your tweet, and I was like, "Oh my god, the vision! I see it." We got to talk about Clea because she has some pretty notable moments in these trailers that we should talk about that fit into larger picture things. But I want to hone in on that. Why were you crashing out about that? Taking it back to season 1 with the sister. Do we get closure there? What's going on?
Okay. Since and I think I quote retweeted that underneath that tweet, but there's like a very specific shot of Cassian, or like a face that he makes in episode 4. And that's when it hit me. I was like, that's Clea's face. I was like, that looks exactly like Elizabeth Dulau, and there's similarities there. And then there was the whole thing with the sister, and of course it was the K name. And I just started putting like all of these things together. But then as the season went on, Clea is one of the only other characters besides Marva and Cassian to have their theme play in a title sequence. And when Clea is walking, when Clea is walking through the tunnel to go meet with Vel, it's like literally almost exactly the same music as they play it on Canary. So it's like,
yes,
there's so many different instances, and part of me thinks that nobody knew that Clea was Cassian's sister except Tony Gilroy and Nicholas Bertel because of the whole like title sequence thing.
Be like whispering in his ear, like, "Hey, so I just want you to know this little piece of information. Maybe it'll help you out, maybe not." But just letting you know.
Yeah. I mean, there are some things that are like contradictory. Like, why doesn't Clea say anything when like Luthen says that he's from Canary or something like that? But I don't even think that like she wants Luthen to know if it's true. And I like we know that a version of Cassian's sister is alive because there was the instance where Cassian goes to the brothel and he's like, oh, was a girl from Canary here? And then she had only left like a couple of days or weeks later or something like that. Okay, what? You're doing the I have a thought face, Lindsay.
Well, we know that Clea has interacted with Vix, right? Like
Yes.
they've interacted, and Morlana 1 is not far from
They're
Ferrix.
like in the same sector or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway,
The other thing I want to say on this is we don't know shit about Clea. Like we just don't.
No.
She's there that whole season as Luthen's right-hand woman, and she is perhaps even more in it than he is. She is so serious about the cause, and she is so serious about her mission, and we don't know a single thing about her except for her seriousness about the mission. And Tony Gilroy doesn't strike me as the type of guy, and you know, who knows, but like he doesn't strike me as the type of guy as a creative who's like, I'm just going to put this woman here and not give her any point in life or any purpose or any backstory. Because all of the characters on this show and all of the women have such strong arcs and points of view. And I don't think that we haven't gotten one for her yet. It's just that or that she doesn't have one. I think it's that we just haven't gotten one from her yet. And I don't know if I'm like 100% bought in on the siblings, but again, everything is a possibility until it isn't. And this like feels like it's a potential answer for maybe why we haven't heard from her. And how like kind of devastating would it be if they kind of have this moment of like, Spider-Man's pointing at each other, but like emotionally, Adagio for Strings is playing in the background, and it's like really upsetting because here they are and they're in this time of genuine crisis, but they've been living in this parallel space this entire time, and they somehow all ended up in the same room, right? I think that would be particularly interesting and a juicy kind of plot point to maybe dive into.
Yeah. And Clea is also like, we see her, some of the most like defining moments with Clea are when she's like tinkering with Imperial tech, and like one of the first scenes that we hear with Cassian is that he's found this Starpath unit, and like you see in his bedroom, like he's obviously had like a lot of time to tinker with things, so it'd be cool to see if there's like that connection. And we brought up that she's very prominent in the second season trailer, but there's like a scene where she kind of grabs him by the shirt, and it just feels very like siblingy. I know I'm probably pushing it and I'm like living in my own head, but I don't know. It's a very, I feel like it could literally go either way. Like it could be that it's just coincidence that Tony Gilroy and Nicholas Bertel decided to put that very similar and same sounding music on top of Clea when she's walking, and her theme in the intro alongside his mother. I don't know. I would be sad if it wasn't true, but I also wouldn't be like heartbroken. Like I wouldn't feel like it was the end of the world or anything like that. Though I do really, really, really hope that the sister storyline isn't done, because I don't want it to be, but I don't think Cassian deserves that in a way.
I think it would be really compelling, when Marva's the one who says, stop looking for your sister. Nobody survived. And I think she's just trying to be like, live in reality for a second. This was a dire situation that led up to this, and led up to you coming with us, and that, and we've lived a lot more life. So stop having your head in the clouds when the world around you needs you right as you are. But I think it would be this like ray of hope if he does end up finding her and having an answer to his question. of where she was, because he dedicated so much time to it, and it was a selfish pursuit in a way, right? Like I'm trying to find my sister. Maybe there's some level of resentment. He obviously loves Marva and cares for Marva, but maybe there's a little bit of resentment that like lives inside of him that they didn't save her too, or that, you know, she's just been missing and he has, and Marva or Clem haven't like put in the work to find her. And I think like allowing him to have closure on that story in his life would be emotionally satisfying for us as a viewer, knowing that like Cassian's arc is one of ultimate sacrifice and ultimate selflessness, that he gets a selfish answer, and gets to resolve a part of his heart that was hurting.
Mm, yeah. And I feel like maybe whatever, if that happens, if he does find his sister and does get some closure, I feel like that could solidify his all in to the rebellion. Because I think he's in, but I feel like as a person, if you were devoting so much time and effort to something that you truly believed in, a cause, and then you also had this very personal, very sad, very, you know, this I lost my sister and I don't know if she's alive or not, and I feel that she is, that you would I know I know at the end of the first season he's like, I you know, kill me or take me in, but I feel like even more so as a rebel operative, he might be like, that's closed, like that chapter of my life is closed. I have closure or an answer. Now I really am all the way into this cause, and if I die, I die, but at least I'll know now what happened. So I just keep getting this picture of Cassie and like the way that he's walking across the Yavin tarmac in the trailer, or even in Rogue One, just this kind of self-assured person. I feel like you could get that with a Cassian that knows what happened to his sister. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We get so much confident walking in these trailers that I hope we get some answers that are good, so that they can confidently walk to places. No, but I agree with you on the sort of self-assuredness of having that answer and moving forward with it. I think that would be really satisfying as a viewer for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Please.
Well, speaking of Yavin, I think as we start to wrap up, the connective tissue to Rogue One, and speaking of Clea too, like the scene that you mentioned, Savi, where she kind of pulls Cassian in, same room, seems like the same scene, telling him that they're building a weapon. So Clea knows about the Death Star, doesn't know that it's called the Death Star, but she knows there's a weapon, which I'm assuming is going to now lead the breadcrumbs to Rogue One and find out who's building the weapon. Galen Erso's building a weapon. Who can we get Galen Erso through? Jyn Erso. Let's go get Jyn Erso. And then now we're here, right? So I guess, like, I don't know. I find it really interesting that Clea, and I feel like in that point in the trailer, that seems like a Clea who is without Luthen. She seems very like disheveled. She seems very like sweaty and like something's wrong. Like she's very upset. And so I feel like maybe she's lost her mooring a bit without Luthen, because like, not that she's entirely dependent on him, but like they've been partners for a while. And so losing him, I would imagine, is pretty traumatic. And then also holding on to this information that like, if you don't share it, it dies with you. If you do share it, you die because you shared it, right? So it's probably like a lot of weight that's sitting on her. But would love to open it up to your guys' thoughts on like, how do we get from Clea saying they're building a weapon to go find Jyn Erso? And or not even go find Jyn Erso, take it one step back, like go to the Rings of Caffrine to confirm this information that we have with Cassian's buddy that he puts a blaster bolt into to protect that information even more, first and foremost.
This is breaking me. Me. How do we get from A to Z? I guess we find out.
Saw Gerrera. Saw Gerrera is going to be the linchpin, I think. One of the linchpins.
I think that's what's also like, how will they get to A to Z I promise I know my alphabet, is that like how do they end up like knowing how to find Jin? And like that's what's killing me, is that Jin is obviously like the really very very prominent part of Rogue One, because without Jin there's no Rogue One, there's no Battle of Scarif, like there's no finding the Stardust record file. So it's like, how does Cassian, this is why I'm really passionate about feeling that Jin won't be in Andor season 2, but she will be like the conversation topic essentially, is because like Cassian will obviously have to do research on Saw Gerrera, and then Cassian will obviously have to like learn about Galen, and then Galen to Jin. So it's like, it would almost feel like it would make less sense to not have Jin be mentioned, if that makes sense. It's like, I don't know, she like without her, like there's no story essentially, because Cassian's story leads into Jin's.
I feel pretty confident saying we're not going to see Jin Urso, but like I'm actually leaning more towards we could see a Galen Urso, because like
yes,
Krennic being in the picture, that feels like more realistic to me. And I like your thought, Lindsay, on Saw, like because Saw knows Galen, knows Jin. Jin was with the Partisans for quite some time as a kid, right? And before she kind of went out and started using a bunch of her aliases. So like, how do they know about her aliases and to find her in the prison system? Like Saw seems like a reasonable suspect to get that information from.
Here,
I think that that's true and right, but how does then why does Cassian need Jin to have a conversation with Saw? That's my only thing.
Because they think that Jin will be the only one to get through to Saw, because no one else can approach him, because Galen's own, like, Bodhi wasn't even able to reason with Saw. So here's what I think. I think Clea knows the weapon's being built. I think we're going to get the Rebel spy network knowing about Krennic. And I think that Saw comes into play because Saw could be like, he knows that Galen Erso was taken by Krennic. Like, and he knows that Galen Erso worked with Krennic. And if they have connected Krennic to a weapon, then he could be like, oh, Galen Erso, Jin's been with me for so many years. I could see somebody, if not Saw, because I feel like Saw was always really tight-lipped about Jin and didn't want anyone else to know that Jin was Galen Erso's daughter. Like, he killed people that suspected it. If they carry that into Andor, I don't know. But I could see him or someone around Saw leaking that Jin, like somebody's going to be talking. Someone's going to talk. Someone's going to spill the beans. And I feel like Saw's going to be somewhere mixed up in that, because I feel like he's the connective tissue between Krennic, Galen, and Jin, and the rebellion putting that together, because they know they need to talk to Saw because Bodhi was stopped by Saw, right? Like, that's what Tivik was telling Cassian, right? Didn't he tell
the pilot?
Yeah, he's like, what about the pilot? Because maybe Saw's kind of out of the picture when they're talking about, like, Saw's not factored in basically into the situation until Bodhi is captured. Then they're like, oh, now we have to talk to Saw. And then Cassian's like, well, we know Jin Urso was with Saw, and we know we need to get to Galen. So it just kind of all coalesces together. But I don't know, you guys.
Okay. If nobody can get through to Saw, we know a couple things about Saw. Like, Saw's kind of willing to do anything. He's willing to be bolder than some of our other major rebellion players much earlier. He's willing to cause trouble. And then we know that, like, our senators, our elites are less willing to give up everything in that sense. There's a status quo that they have to maintain, that a world that they live in that doesn't necessarily fathom Saw's point of view of his work into their rebellious work, right? What's the breaking point, perhaps, between Luthen and Saw? How do we lose Saw? How can we not get through to what's the impetus for us not being able to get through to Saw? And I feel like if the connection to Luthen is gone, or Luthen and Mon and everybody else have pushed Saw out in such a way where like, you've gone too far. We can't participate with you anymore because you've done something that's beyond anything. Like my thought while we were kind of like starting this conversation is like, what if Luthen or Saw or any but other of our major players in this show, like what if they do something that causes the Empire to take action, to take punitive action, to fire their weapons or something like that on the Ghorman people? Not to suggest that what the Empire will do is justified in any sense, but the idea just of Luthen being this accelerationist, and we know that Saw is someone who's also willing to, in Rogue One, right? Like to cause havoc in a sense. I wonder if anybody is butting heads in their participation in the Ghorman protests that lead to the massacre. I don't know.
Yeah, like a difference of opinion on how to act.
Right.
Or they cross paths operating in the same area.
Mm-hmm.
Like Saw's people and Cassian. Something like that. I think that my question is, and maybe I'm just forgetting how this all went down or whatever, but my wondering is, Melshi and K2 were going to get Jin while Cassian was learning the information about the pilot being stopped by Saw Gerrera.
Yeah.
So they were already trying to get Jin before the issue with Saw came up. So I'm wondering if like their initial plan was always find Jin, see if Jin knows where Galen is, because that's the only person they can think of who's connected with him. Or if she remembers what her father was working on, like they were grasping at straws at that point, maybe. Because I can't think of any other reason that they would be really honing in on Jin other than because that's how they question her when they first bring her in. They're like,
when did you last?
Like they're questioning him. Yeah. So I think that they'll learn about Galen. They'll learn he had a daughter. We don't know where the daughter is. Who tells them about the daughter? I don't know. We know Saw knows that Jin was a person. But yeah, so that's the only thing I can think of. And then Saw, of course, just gets wrapped up in it because he kidnaps Bodhi. So,
yeah. I feel like
holds Bodhi hostage.
I feel like Tivik telling Cassian and the information's not like revelatory. It's probably more like confirming what they already know.
Yeah,
probably.
So it's a little bit of a flip of the Rogue One, where it's like Rogue One you first watch and you're like, oh, they just learned it there. And it's like, nope, there's actually a whole lot of other stuff that happens before that. And this is just like really confirming Urso is a key contact. They're building a Death Star planet killer thing. Like all the intelligence they can get before they take on such a deadly, highly classified operation to like pull in the daughter of an Imperial scientist.
Mm-hmm.
Does Cassian reference the Death Star? Like, what does he say? Does he just say it's a weapon?
Tivik says it's a planet killer.
Okay, there we go.
I think that he obviously already knows by what we've seen in season 2, because Clay is telling him that they're building a weapon. And then I think now we're going to see Rogue One differently and that scene differently, because I think Cassian already knows, and he's killing Tivik to like keep that information kind of in the close circle.
Oh yeah, okay,
yeah.
That really recontextualizes it.
Yeah,
for sure.
he's trying to he's like pretending that he doesn't know. So
right,
yeah,
because if that leaks, what happens? Now we get every Imperial force you have on Scarif right now. Like lock that shit down.
Exactly.
They're not slipping in later.
Well, and he might not want him to go back to Saw.
Yeah, he's like. Exactly, because Tivik was going to go back to Jeddah. So he was like, this information literally can't leave this alleyway.
Because what would Saw do with that information?
Man, I am so excited. I think like just obviously the Ghorman Massacre is going to be like such a monumental arc of story in the season, but really seeing those last 6 episodes, how we really tie into Rogue One, weave those threads together, get some juicy yum 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 name drops, like get an Urso in there, get a Bail Organa in there, get a General Draven in there. Come on, I want to see my boy Draven.
Yes.
Please.
I
I think he's confirmed.
I think he's in
I
it.
think it was
Yeah, I think
rumored. Yeah. So
I-
I would love
No, I
Has he
think
been
well,
yeah, Alistair was like
Al-
because I think that they
okay.
showed him. They like showed him in the like D23 Brazil trailer or whatever.
yeah, and also Duncan Powell months ago, before that was announced, Alistair had posted a picture of like a landscape, and Duncan Powell commented underneath of it. Melshi commented underneath of it. I can't remember what he commented, but I was like,
Just not,
while you're
just
still-
not a subtle
they were
man
still
at all.
filming. They were still filming, and it was like a filming location I think that like Andor was using already. So I was like,
Well,
Sus.
it's not
"Okay,
the
we see you."
it's like the you guys are still commenting and you were coworkers 10 years ago? Only 10 years ago?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no way. There's no way.
Sure.
So
There was also that like do you guys remember when they were filming, when there was all those articles that came out where like this one show was filming there and there was like a flood where it had to delay it or whatever? Well, like that same time Duncan Powell posted a picture of himself at like near that location with like the Melshi look. So I was like, is Melshi going to be part of the partisans? Because in the articles you saw Maroff.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't like those leaky things, but
partisan
Duncan Powell's
Melshi
just living his
kind
best
of
life.
makes sense.
hey,
He's
what's
just out here
really is.
posting photos from locations like, you
That's
can't
right.
fire me, I'm Melshi. Try.
You
See
called
what the
him
people
back,
riot.
in fact.
Pick it up with Tony Gilroy.
I'm not, Tony Gilroy is not the guy who's really going to care. Like, which I really love that about him. He's just,
Tony Gilroy told us how the series ended like 5 years ago. You know, like he does not give a shit. He got his paycheck, you know. Real big brain though, Antok Merrick. I want my boy back
I'm
with a
clapping like a
mustache.
seal right now.
Please. Would love that.
Oh my gosh, you guys will hear my scream from time zones away, thousands of miles across an ocean. I'll
Oh,
be on top of a roof,
Wait,
wailing.
across an ocean. Oh, where will you be
Well,
across an
we've
ocean?
actually, I
Oh.
think we'll be together in Japan when it airs.
I don't think that we'll see Antok Merrick in the first 2 episodes or 3 episodes.
Never mind.
maybe we will.
Never
You know
mind.
what? Maybe
then.
we will. Let's
Maybe
dream
these
big. Let's
listeners
dream
are across the
big.
ocean.
Let's dream big.
Okay.
he's so
100%.
handsome. Why would you not have him in your TV show? You know, you could fit
That's
him in
so
there.
true.
Please, Ben Daniels. Please, Ben Daniels.
Oh,
Please
he's
come
just so
back.
handsome. Any other final crackpot
even just
theories? Like any cameo? Any like just real out there? Like shoot a half court shot. Hope for the best. Fingers crossed it goes in.
I don't, besides mentioning Jin, because I don't think she's going to be in it. I just think that like she'll have a name drop, because if we see Galen, then we're obviously going to see him like naming the files, like the Stardust file. And that'll be like a mention of Jin in itself. But I really want to see Bix and Melshi interact just for personal reasons. Like I just really want to see that happen. And I'm also really excited to see Vel on Yavin because
Yes.
of
Oh,
the special
yeah.
look.
Mm-hmm.
I was also just really glad to see that she makes it all the way to Yavin. Like that was like a really great reassurance. But
I love Vel. We didn't talk about her enough, but I'm super excited that she's gonna be prominent, and Cinta obviously too. Like I know they had like a caressing shot moment at the Celebration London trailer.
Oh, God, 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
1,000
I've-
years, yeah.
That I've never seen, because I would never watch a grainy cell phone video.
No, we don't do that here.
Yeah, same. I would never do that. Who would
I didn't
do
have
that?
to because I
Sarah?
watched it in
Who would do
person.
something like that?
Well, not
Same.
all of us have that sort of privilege over here. Dare I say, like,
Yeah.
like Cassian, but like season 2 is about the women. Season 2 is about the women.
Yeah.
There's so many women. I love them all. Every single one of them. Even the
Mhm.
worst one, who I kind of hate also. But I I love her. I want her to succeed, but I want her to fail. You know?
Yeah. You love to hate her and you hate to love her.
Yes. But there are so
Yeah,
many.
we all know who you're talking about.
There's only one.
Yes.
But there's like so many exciting women in this series, and they all have such complex and like fleshed out lives that I want them to have the full range of human experience in this season as well. And I think we're gonna get the devastation. We're gonna get like romance. I think we're gonna get them being the hero and everything in between.
I have someone, I will always butcher his name, but he's in Last Jedi. So and he's a rebel.
Oh, I already know.
Very much
I already
rebel
know
in
who
the
you're gonna say.
Caluan Emot. Please let him be in it.
It's the text post where it's like something new from Star Wars will drop, and there will be somebody who will say, "OMG, Glub Shido is back." That's Lindsay with this character.
Caluan Ematt. This man, he was a leader of the Shrikes, which are like a offshoot of the Pathfinders in a sense, you could say. And they were epic, okay? And when Emot got like stuck or whatever, and he was trapped somewhere, Draven was like, damn, I wish we still had Cassian Andor, because I would send him to go rescue him, but I have to send Han Solo instead. Like, this is a thing that happened, okay? So I need that man to be. I need there to be someone who looks like him on Yavin, so I can go, that is him.
Well, he's in
and then just be happy.
He's in The Last Jedi. Oh,
I know.
I said Return of the Jedi. I was like, maybe.
No, yeah, he's in The Last Jedi as a general.
He's old as hell. Sorry.
He is.
I don't know why you said Last Jedi. I was like, I thought you were going to say like the guy who tastes the salt and says salt, but it's like the kid version of him.
No, not Gareth. Not Gareth.
What if he were a kid? Coming to Disney Plus this fall.
What if you were a kid? No, it's like the dude with the binoculars or whatever.
Yeah. He's got some really. I think the actor actually just passed away like not too long ago. So R.I.P. Emot, but
I don't think he'll be.
No, I remember him. He had some really good like long white locks. He's looking good for his age.
But he's a young man in the rebellion. Like, he's Cassian's age probably, so, or younger.
Who knows? Yeah, the Pathfinders seems like they're coming in, so let's fingers crossed. That'd be awesome.
Okay. Anyway, that was my silly out there off the wall guess.
Can I put one silly out there off the wall guess into this conversation as well?
Yes.
Where are the Dozas? Where are the Dozas? Vanessa Doza.
That's really out there.
Captain Doza. We know that Captain Doza was a member of the Empire.
Oh.
So why hasn't he shown back up anywhere?
I mean, hey, come on, Tony. Who needs these random people we don't know?
Even if they just named it, even if we just named him in like a visual dictionary, you have no idea. I'd be so thrilled.
Okay, I have another one, guys.
Oh my god, we're never gonna move on.
Thrawn.
Shido is back.
We need Thrawn. I need so badly for Krennic to be. I don't know if I'm allowed to use swear words, but I need Krennic to be so angry and reference how Thrawn, even if he doesn't even say Thrawn's name, but we know who he's talking about, who has this TIE fighter initiative or whatever that he's trying to get pushed.
That would be something if Thrawn showed up. I would be supportive of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it would.
Just at the table with all the bad dudes.
And they don't say anything. Like, they don't point him out. Like, he's just there in his blue.
Mads Mikkelsen would love to be.
His like, red eyes are glowing.
I could see Mads just being like, yes, the instant he gets that call, he's like, yes, whatever it is, yes. And he's just like sitting there in one scene with Eli standing behind him.
Oh god. Eli Vanto finally back in
Eli.
Andor season 2.
That would actually be really okay. Wait, no, because Gael was my like fan cast for Eli, but then I was like, wait, no, that won't work. But he's now my fan cast for Kes Dameron.
Ooh.
Because that would be cool. That would be a cool cameo.
Cass Dameron showing up in the Mando movie would be cool. I see the vision. Oh well, we at the time of this recording, we got 3 more weeks. I'm so excited. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks for joining us. This was so much fun to just
Thank you for having us.
talk about like so many fun little out there theories, things that we're excited about for the season. We yapped for 2 hours, but like 2 hours, 2 seasons of Andor feels right to me. Feels organic.
We gotta.
So thank you for being here for this long. So appreciative.
I'm sufficiently hyped.
Yeah. Where can our listeners find you online? How are you guys covering Andor? Because obviously people should check out your coverage as well. And anything else you have coming up that you want to shout out?
You can find us at Stardust Records on Instagram and Twitter and Blue Sky without the O. So Stardust Records. And we'll be covering it weekly. I know Tony Gilroy said that he was sorry to us, but I think that we have it in us. But I'm sure we'll have a more solid plan 3 weeks from now.
That's so
I can
real,
barely even
so
think about tomorrow.
I get it.
But
Fair.
yeah, especially since we're in the past and Celebration hasn't happened yet. But and then Lindsay, where can we find you?
You can find me at A Cosmic Love on Twitter and at Rebel Risen on Instagram. And yeah, and let's shout out, well, this is dropping when it's already happened, but okay, so let's shout out that we did an interview with editor Tom of Star Wars Random House Books. And so that will be up by the time you listen to this. So maybe like go back and listen.
Past, future, we're splitting and combining over here in traditional egg talk fashion on Friends of the Force. We love it.
And that is a lot of time travel.
No doubt doing an excellent episode. We are big fans of editor Tom here on Friends of the Force. So I will be listening to that. I will in the future have already listened to that. I'm looking forward to it in the past. Definitely check it out.
No, that's super excited. Tom is good people. Can't wait to listen to that. Everybody should go check out that interview. Stardust Records. You guys are awesome. Seriously, keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate you being here. Hopefully not the last time.
No,
too. Maybe when we get that 3rd Jedi Survivor game.
Oh, 100%.
We'll have to like
yeah.
gush about the conclusion of it all. So yeah, that's it for us here. Friends of the Force Andor April continues with one more episode next week. Our episode 1 to 3 discussion. So make sure you're following us on all of our socials, get that latest episode, and subscribe to our podcast feed.
Stay healthy, stay hydrated, get ready for Andor. Oh my God. And we'll catch you in the next one where we will be in the future having already watched Andor.
Well, that's it, everybody. Enjoy your first Star Wars movie in 6 years. Get the popcorn out, get the soda out. It's going to be a bumpy ride. So until next time, may the Force be with all of you always.
Bye.